Hello and welcome to episode number 7 of the Matt Belair podcast and Google Hangout show. Do you know of someone who has recently become a vegetarian? Or maybe someone who's done the paleo diet? Or maybe you know someone that's transformed their life by changing their eating habits? There is no doubt that now more than ever we need to pay attention to and understand what we are putting into our bodies, especially if you have kids. One of the first things I look at when coaching an athlete in sport or even mindfulness is their diet. Our food affects all areas of our life, including our energy levels and even how we think. In this episode, you're going to learn all about food. We are going to dispel myths. We are going to give you practical tools to transform your diet now. Today's guest is the best-selling author of The Power of Food. He is a highly sought-after speaker and expert on the topic of food and healthy eating. He has an incredible story about how he transformed his own life and began teaching himself the secrets to unleashing his full potential by harnessing the power of food. Welcome to the show, my friend, Adam Hart. Adam, how are you, brother?
Yeah, Matt, appreciate it. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. I'm excited. I'm definitely excited to have you here because, as you know, I went to one of your seminars a long time ago. And this was before the book, and it just blew my mind. At that time, I was eating like foot-long Subway subs, and that's what I get on lunch, right? And I would just stack them with everything, so they'd be these monsters, and I'd be full that way. But I remember you gave me this little tiny lunch, and when we went to the seminar, because it's helping you with something, I was like, "You expect me to eat this? Like I'm a full-grown man, like I'm going to be hungry." And I ate it, and I was full of energy. I wasn't hungry, and it changed. Like I didn't have, I kind of always was just getting used to eating something and then feeling tired, and I just felt, tons of energy. So right there, you had me convinced. And then since then, you've been, doing a lot of great things in the food world, educating a lot of people. So why don't you just introduce yourself and maybe share a little bit about your story, about your book, what you've done, just to let everybody get to know you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. First, I want to congratulate you for being on a path that you've been on for as long as you have. I mean, we have known each other for several years, and I've been watching you grow your power and obviously grow your beard. And it's a pleasure to share this kind of time with you. So I appreciate the opportunity. My story, my history is one that's very common nowadays. Having gone through a whole host of illnesses and disease, and we can dive into more of that as we chat. But it's a very common story nowadays, wanting to tap into another level of energy that most of us don't know exists. And so I've just really used nutrition as my main catalyst, my main tool to engaging my energy in a way that I create anything and everything around me based on using the energy from food and obviously a lot of other skill sets that we'll chat about. But it's just beautiful to be on the opposite side of the chaos and the way that most of us live our lives and how we live. So, my story is one of self-discovery, self-educating, self-empowerment, and has really led me to a life of purpose and a life of sharing with others. So again, I appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. That's amazing. Yeah, and what definitely around food is some pretty powerful information. I guess how I would start, or maybe because you're definitely the expert here. Like, what are some common things that people are doing on a daily basis that they're not even aware of that could be harming their body? They're like, oh yeah, I'm eating this, but wait, this isn't good for me. Like, do you have some common tips you can kind of throw out there and start there?
It has to be easy. That's at the bottom line of all of it. If it's not easy for us, then it just perpetuates the chaos and the frustration and the feelings of darkness that lead to the symptoms that most of us suffer from. And when we receive information, it has to be in a way that's easily digestible, and that's obviously a lot with the food that I eat, digestibility. So information runs the same way. If it receives in a way that's easy, we're going to use it. And I have found over the years that I have been able to articulate my information in a way that is becoming more and more digestible, which is empowering. So, the reality is there's only two kinds of food. that's it. And when we understand those two types of food, it starts to unravel a lot of the confusion and make our decision making a little bit easier, which then gets to be a lot easier. So I'll ask you, the two types of food, any idea what those might be?
I feel like I'm getting quizzed already. I don't know. Real food and fake food.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so mostly the answer is good and bad, and that's the reality. It's either at the heart of it, it's either living food, it's alive, it's going to feed you lots of nutrients, or it's dead food. And when I really started to play with this concept, it allowed me to tap into a whole other level of energy that I didn't know I had a choice to have. And when I knew I had the choice, obviously I wanted more of the choice that made me feel good. So it was just really creating this separate reality of, okay, whatever I put in my body is either going to be alive, full of nutrients, or it's going to be dead. And so on that bad side of food, when I teach and I share and in the power of food, which I'll just throw that up there really quick so everybody can get a look at that. That's the book there. So in there, yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, it's all about understanding that if we can create a knowledge base around this, it changes all our decisions. So on the process side, that's the bad food. Is the processed foods have very little nutritional value, dominate most of our diet in North America. And I also put in that category meat and dairy. And I'm never going to be the guy that's going to tell you what you should or shouldn't eat. I tend to believe that in my diet in the past, I overconsumed processed food and I overconsumed meat and dairy. And so as I learned how to add more of this world into my current diet without eliminating, that's when everything started to change. And this world is plants. It's the plant-based world. Nuts, seeds, grains, legumes, fruits, and vegetables.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, and one you talked about, I remember at the seminar, was just the way you use seeds and incorporate them in everything. And I think that's a huge pointer that I learned. Maybe you can touch on that, just how powerful freaking seeds are, just to start sprinkle them in. Because I was like, oh my God. And that it's like this such a powerful piece of information that I was totally unaware of that just kind of changed the game for me.
Yeah. Well, let's do it this way. Let me ask you, what's the number one ingredient in North America that we consume? The number one ingredient.
Is it wheat?
Yeah, beautiful, dude. Awesome.
Yes.
So yeah, that's right. So a lot of people, it's like right away, it's sugar. We eat too much sugar, and it's true. But wheat, in the form that we consume it, is a simple sugar, because you have this beautiful plant-based food. It's a grain. Yes, some diets say no grains, like the paleo and a whole bunch of other ones. I'm always a feel guy. I go with what makes me feel good, and that leads me to my optimal diet. But wheat in its whole state, a lot of protein, good fiber, good carbohydrate. But then to create all the food that we consume based on that number one ingredient, you have to take that to the milling process, crushing it down into a flour using a high amount of heat. And anytime you introduce heat to food, you start to destroy the nutritional value. So it becomes more like dead food. Right. So if you think about that for a minute, everything that we're putting in our bodies based on that number one ingredient being wheat, what foods do you know are made with wheat as the number one ingredient?
Yeah, everything, like bread, wraps.
Right.
It's wheat's in everything, isn't it?
Everything, crackers, cookies, bacon, cereal, pizza. And my belief is this is by design. It's by design, and I'm not a corporate basher, but this is the reality is most of us are numb to our own energy because we are addicted to sugar. So when we consume those products, it acts like a simple sugar. It just spikes the insulin and gives you a crash. So my whole concept is, and going back to your question about the power of seeds, is we can't go through this elimination diet. It doesn't work. It's already proven that this whole model of dieting is it's a myth. It's just, we're spending all our time, energy, and money into solutions that are only perpetuating our chaos and our feelings of frustration and guilt. When the reality is, stop eliminating, which is trying to remove the darkness. Let's start thinking of what can I add in that represents a source of light, represents an act of love and nourishment that actually will stabilize the blood sugar at the same time. And that for me is where seeds come in. And in particular, one seed more than any has been hemp. Hemp seeds has been my number one food for 15 years, and I credit it with saving my life. And just adding it in, my whole thing is giving people that I get a chance to connect with a 7-day challenge. For 7 days, don't change your diet, add in a tablespoon of hemp seeds into everything you eat all day long. And that's because of the nutritional power of these types of seeds. Lots of great complete proteins, great carbohydrates, great essential fatty acids. And so they stimulate differently than sugar does in the body. So it provides you with a little bit more sustained energy, less sugar cravings, less food cravings. You feel fuller longer, and you eat less, and you start to feel better.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, and it's such a beautiful perspective. When I'm coaching or trying to help someone around anything, it's like, how do we find a new perspective around it that's going to work, that you're going to get a result from, right? So you're kind of noticing that by taking away isn't working, and on the mass level, people can't find change, but just by rethinking it slightly, adding in some more of the, living food, the stuff that's going to give you real energy, real nutrients, then it allows you an opportunity to shift. And I'm just going to add a story for me personally. What really shifted my eating was when I went to do ayahuasca. They make you do a diet, which is no sugar, no salt, no meat, no dairy, no caffeine, no nothing. So for the first time I did it, I didn't know what the heck to eat. I basically starved myself. I was making smoothies. I got this almond butter, but I had to find a super obscure bread to put it on. So I was basically eating bananas, smoothies, and pieces of almond butter bread. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Yeah. Then the next time I did it, I got better at it. But the weird thing that I didn't expect is that I had to do the diet for 6 days, and ayahuasca is an experience in itself, and it's tremendous. But beyond that, because I had been eating so clean, my brain changed in the sense that I remember I was reading the autobiography of a yogi at the time, and I was getting ready for the plane. So I was reading leading up to the plane. It was about 40 minutes. Then the plane was an hour and a half, and I read from takeoff to landing without any kind of break. Usually I can only last for 30 minutes of concentration. So I had an elevated awareness. And this is kind of something that you're touching on, where you're talking about energy and how it can really change you. It changes your whole entire way of life. It isn't about going from fat to skinny. It is about changing your entire life. It's living in a whole parallel reality. It is so friggin' powerful. People, if they can just imagine, let's take a 15-year-old kid and we give him pop and pizza and crap, and you know what I mean? See what he's going to do. And then you give him some soups and some natural ingredients and some hemp seeds and some smoothies. What's going to happen? And as what happens with most adults is we get into patterns and we eat, what's easy. But when we kind of force our way of thinking and maybe do a challenge, like you said, 7 days of doing this, or whatever you need to do, because you need to experience how powerful it can be. Yeah. Because when you do, you're like, holy shit, oh my God, what? And this is kind of when we started, I was in the conspiracy road forever because I studied the mind. So I was always like, okay, I understand how the mind works. And then I look at the news and how they're programming. I'm looking at school. I'm like, oh my God. This is not good, and you get to the point. So if you look at food, holy crap, food is just, watch any documentary you want, right? But as you realized, that doesn't serve, right? It's like I can go and explain to everybody how terrible this farm is and what's happening on a mass scale here. So what you've done is you've come up with the solutions.
I used to be the basher and don't eat GMOs and don't do this, and how it just falls on deaf ears because nobody wants to keep hearing perpetual bad news over and over again. We're so frustrated with our own lives most of the time that the last thing we want is someone else's crap on us. And the beautiful thing is with this model of just adding is if you do it and you do it consistently, within 2, 3, 4 days, you notice something. And then you realize that you do have a choice. And when you know that you have a choice, it's just a matter of, okay, I know I have a choice now. Now I need to build structure and I need to have more tools to continually engage that choice. Because it's really important with the chaos and the structure of the chaos the way it is, the current system, in order for us to really move away to what's on the opposite to that, which is, whatever you might want to define that, for me, it's pure freedom.
Mm-hmm.
You need structure. It has to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as the steps. Every day I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it keeps showing you how to live in that space. And that, at the heart of it, what I'm talking about, and I think what you're also really good at, is it's manifestation. Nutrition is just a tool for me to manifest everything and anything I want in my life. But it's the most important, because until you stabilize your blood sugar, my belief is, until your sugar is stabilized on a regular basis, you'll never be able to tap into your true potential to create the abundance you're looking for in your life.
Wow, man, that's powerful stuff. And it's interesting too, because we're trying to talk about food, and we'll get into some more practical stuff soon. But this is like the real thing. Like, you now understand, you are now living, you went from one world and now you went to another world. It's literally a parallel life, and you're just, and you understand, like, holy smokes, like it means everything. And I heard a friend watching a documentary, and he said something like sugar, would be illegal now because it's technically poison or something. Is that true? I don't know if that's true.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's by design. We are addicted beyond belief to sugar in all its forms. And, when we say sugar, we think, well, it's just, table sugar, but it's not. It's in, like we mentioned with wheat, but it's corn, it's rice, gluten, all these gluten-free diets now. You go to any of the gluten-free shows, and it's just cakey, sugary foods. So, it's just one of those things where we are hijacked. Our minds are hijacked on the chemicals of what sugar is doing. And, it's then perpetuated by, I don't know what to do to be healthy. I don't know what to do to start to feel better. I can't afford to do this. We're fed all this information that's misleading us and throwing us smoke and mirrors all the time, that we don't realize right in front of us are some beautiful plant-based foods that have some powerful micronutrients that your body's starving for, that all you got to do is feed it a little bit, and it's going to start communicating. Your only role then is to just pay attention. If you're doing like the 7-day challenge, like I mentioned, every time you add in hemp seeds or whatever you're adding in, your only role is to be mindful to what your body is saying and feeling and telling you, because that's when this whole shift happens, when you realize, wow, I have a choice to actually communicate with my mind and body in a way that we never realized we did.
Yeah, man. And, I don't want to make this like a psychedelic endeavor, but when you do ayahuasca, it's 2 plants. So when you're like in that space, I had food shown to me, and, it's like a 5D space, like, oh my God. Okay. But if you just think about it with your rational mind, you don't need to do ayahuasca. You take something, you put it in your mouth, then it becomes you digest it, you merge with that. So, you're looking at plant intelligence, if we're kind of tribal times, we're picking, we're just eating off of the land, and we're aware of what the food does. And now we're just sitting in a space where everything is just, modified garbage and created and manufactured, and it tastes good, and so we like it, and then we become addicted to it. And then the second you eat a carrot, you're like, this carrot sucks, like I want to dip this carrot in some wonderful chocolate or something like that. So it's really, really powerful information, and I love how you're touching on just the change, the energy, the information of the plant. And that's what they call it, like plant medicines. Like all medicine is from nature. All real medicine is from plants. That's like, to me, I call ayahuasca is consciousness medicine. Or, if you get a cut and you go down to the Amazon, they've got the plant that's going to heal your cut. They've got the plant that's going to, help you with a headache. They got you the plant that's going to help you with a rant. It's all freaking plants. Like, if we take away the houses and the buildings and your job and your suit and whatever the hell else you are attached to, and you strip yourself down, you walk naked through the forest, that's what we are. You got to pick up, you got to figure out something, you got to get primal, you got to get beastly. And it's rethinking the whole thing. So I guess what I wanted to ask, and thank you so much for really getting into this, because it's beautiful. For you and for like many other people, when you were at your worst, you were 26, diagnosed with pre-diabetic, which is crazy. You're overweight. You had food allergies. and then what you're touching on now, which is, people just kind of think that it can be everyday acceptable stuff. You had anxiety and you had depression.
Yeah.
And so many people suffer from those things and don't even consider that their diet could be the fix of that. So I know that you have some tools and information around that. I was wondering if you could share a little bit, because it's really amazing stuff.
Yeah. I got really lucky. I got really lucky because I got tired of buying gym memberships over and over again. I don't know. I'm sure some of your listeners can relate to this, but I was overweight. I was unhealthy. I had already bought in so many gym memberships, and then I would go for a week, a month, maybe 2-3 months, but then I would miss a day, miss 2, 3, 4. The feelings would come back of frustration, of guilt, of anger, that I can't stick to it. And I realized, well, this whole cycle of putting myself in a position of failure is not working for me. And so a friend of mine and I, we were rollerblading downtown Toronto, where I'm originally from, and we were both overweight, both feeling pretty crappy, and we stumbled upon a gym, a different type of gym that changed my life. Besides Hemp Seeds, I credit this with also saving my life. And what it was an indoor rock climbing gym. And we went inside the indoor rock climbing gym. And again, I'm suffering with anxiety. This is like the peak of my depression, the peak of my anxiety. I had just come from a doctor's visit where he told me, here's Lipitor, you have high cholesterol. If you don't change the course of your direction, you're going to be insulin dependent within 6 months. And so I really was at my rock bottom. And when we went into this climbing gym, I was excited about it. It was something different, something I never experienced before. So we tried it. I got up halfway up this climbing wall, and all of a sudden the panic set in, the anxiety kicked in, and I was looking around, and I could feel myself starting to sweat. I was getting a little pain in my arm, and I started yelling at my buddy, "Let me down, let me down." But something happened to me that first time that I didn't realize what it was until months later, but I wanted to do it again, and I wanted to do it again. And I realized that it was almost a controlled state that I could process fear and move through some fear. But what eventually I realized is that for the first time in almost my entire life, I was present. Every time I moved on the wall, even though I was indoors holding these plastic holds, I wasn't in my head with the 70,000 plus thoughts a day, full of depressed thoughts, mostly dark, life anguish thoughts of how am I ever going to get through this? How I'm going to survive? One of the things going to be different. I want to have what he has. All these things disappeared. It was just pure peace. And so I got addicted to going after that peace, not knowing that's what I was going after until months later. But so rock climbing became my thing, and I eventually left Toronto to pursue rock climbing out in British Columbia and started training to become a mountain guide and discovered nutrition through that training. But it was tapping into a sport that got me outside into nature, that got me connected to a mindful state that wasn't having to meditate because I was never good at that, wasn't having to do yoga because I was never had the patience for it. But finding a sport, I think, is a critical first step for many of us that gets us outside into some green space, whether it's even just walking around a little bit, consistently being outside with nature, grounding yourself as much as you can, holding onto a tree, putting your bare feet on the grass. Extremely critical addition to adding in these plant-based foods. And you do the combination of those two, and it is amazing how it starts to wake up the mind and body. As long as you're being mindful of the process, it leads you into a beautiful direction.
That's amazing, man. It's funny. I didn't know you're going to go that route with it. Obviously, being a snowboarder and being in the mountains and being huge, some sort of athlete my whole life, I've just been gravitating towards nature. And it's so simple. But the slight difference, a lot of the times it can be just a slight difference. It's not saying go to the gym and, get a trainer and grab some weights. Like that's something, but that's not really natural, Yeah. Like, what are you going to be inspired to do? And that's why I love sport and I'm so passionate. And, I've studied a lot about consciousness, and some people ask, why did you do Zen Athlete when you're so, passionate about consciousness? It's because if you take all kids and teach them to connect to something through that idea, they can now learn about everything else. It's such a powerful way to connect. So through sport, you can learn how freaking powerful food is, because you want to run faster, because you want to jump over the high jump when you're a kid, you want to be better at hockey or football. So you have this connection, and it's not like a chore for you to go out. It shouldn't be a chore. It should be some sort of natural expression of you that you enjoy, and it kind of sparks. So it's a two-way street. So if I want to get better at snowboarding, well, I know, and that's the crazy thing about snowboarding, is like the whole culture is, you know, snowboard and drink and, you know, party, which is great. I really did that, and I did it super hard. But now it's, you know, now they have it where they're like training super hard. It's like a nice balance between the two. Is like, you know, you want to express yourself the best way that you can, and then go into, you know, all of the other, you know, proper training, fitness and things like that. But you have the basics being met. And so for me as a snowboarder, let's say like you kind of take someone and I get a client and they're like, hey, yeah, I'm a snowboarder. And usually I'll ask them about their diet, and I'll usually tell them, you know, raw foods, add some seeds, try to make it natural. And my information's limited. How might you kind of bring somebody into, you know, okay, I know nothing about food. What are like some simple tips where I can like change from going and just getting, you know, Delissio pizzas, and then I wake up with some Cheerios, you know, into a, like what are some like easy ways that you can kind of bring them over to the side so they can experience that difference?
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, you know, the first thing is you got to stabilize the blood sugar. So that's always, whenever I work with my clients or you know, all my corporate wellness workshops and programs, is all based on, number one, stabilize the blood sugar, because then you can start to actually work with your clients in a much deeper and more profound way. So that's by far number one.
Wait,
the other thing is
how?
Well, that's the adding in. So the 7-day challenge of adding in hemp seeds 3 times a day. You know, the tool with that is, I don't have it with me, but a little spice jar. You go to a grocery store, buy a spice jar. Many of us already have them at home. You empty that out, and you fill it up with, you know, the usual size of a spice jar will hold about 4 to 6 tablespoons of hemp seeds.
Okay.
And then you carry that with you everywhere you go. So this is the structure piece around the tool. You take it with you.
So that's beautiful. So like, even if someone's waking up and they're eating Cheerios and then Kraft dinner and then beefaroni for dinner, you keep tossing it in.
You just toss it in.
Cool.
So, you know, think about this for a minute. Like we mentioned this idea of the wheat being the number one ingredient. So when I do a lot of grocery tours with my clients and stuff, and I'll pull up 2 boxes of cereal. One will be like a Frosted Flakes. The other one will be whatever, all brand Buds or something. And I ask everybody, well, which one's healthier? And obviously most people will look at the box and they'll say, well, the all brand is healthier. But the reality is the number one ingredient in all these foods is a processed grain. Wheat dominant, corn, rice. So, you know, Frosted Flakes, Cheerios, Vector, this, that, it doesn't matter which one you choose. Internally, they all act exactly the same way. This was the same with bread, with pasta, with pizza, with cookies, with crackers. We're all reading these labels, bars. We're all, you know, hopped up on reading labels, but meanwhile, the number one ingredient is doing the same thing. So that's why if you carry on this spice jar, it doesn't matter what you eat. Don't read the labels anymore, because they mean nothing. The ingredients means everything, because that's where you notice that the number one ingredient is a processed grain. But you don't have to eliminate your Frosted Flakes or whatever it is that you're eating. You just add in a tablespoon of hemp seeds to help stabilize the sugar. So that's why this tool, so what I recommend is you get the spice jar, you fill it up with the 6 tablespoons, and every day you finish that. Then you take the jar and you put it beside your bed at night as a show of gratitude for what it's doing for you. You wake up in the morning, the first thing you see is that jar. And you say hi, you say thank you for nourishing me today. Then you go down and you fill it up and you do it again. And the next step after that is you have to engage intention. So before I'm going to give anybody a specific diet of any kind, because I don't personally believe in telling somebody what they should eat, because I don't know how their body's working internally, because it's like fingerprints. Everybody has a completely different body function that's going on in that moment, that if you are able to communicate with your body, will lead you to exactly what you should be eating, not what I need to tell you to eat. But you will never get there if your sugar's not stabilized and you don't know what you want based on, you know, being fit, being strong, being whatever it is. You have to kind of have that communication with the consciousness of what you really want and how you really want to feel, because then the food will start to show up that supports that.
Wow. It's an amazing perspective. I recently interviewed my friend Michael Sanders, and he talked about food and depression, and how much we take for granted, eating food and what we have, and he's just like, he's like, when you're trying to be grateful, like, thank the food for nourishing you, and bring it into you, and realize that you're taking this thing for granted. There's millions of people right now that don't have enough food. They're eating rice. So that's a reality for some people. So it's a very, very, and that's where I think where it starts. And I think that's what you keep coming back to, is shifting your perspective around it. You're not wake up and promised food, you wake up and you're like, okay, this is what's going to fuel my body. I think that some people, though, they have like whether they're in between, or, they can't get started, like, so we're adding in, some things. What are some, like, maybe like a simple breakfast, a simple lunch, and a simple dinner, like, idea? Because I know that you're the master at that, getting something really nutritious. And for me, once I kind of find something, like, I eat like a veggie quinoa chili, for breakfast. Sometimes it will just be like eggs and vegetables, and then I guess I'm going to ask now, because I'm on a roll, just to make their, like, protein. So, a lot of the guys in the builders or whatever, like, you need protein. So what are some, like, natural sources of protein, and maybe like, a quick and easy dinner, lunch, and so people can kind of start to shape the information of what it looks like to start doing these things?
Totally. It's really important too with my mission and what I'm up to, is I'm still that guy that likes to go to the bar. I still like to have a beer. I still like to eat pizza. I'll never give that up until it falls away on its own. And to this point, it hasn't. So I think it's really important to know that as you go through this personal transformation, it's not that you have to give anything up. It's that you're learning to communicate at a level where giving up is easy, where it just falls away on its own. One of the main things that, as I connected more to my body, my mind, started stabilizing my blood sugar on a regular basis, I kept that the channel of communication was so clean and clear that I found myself doing a lot of liquids. I had never done smoothies growing up. I had never done a whole lot of soups other than chunky Campbell soups. But I found that the majority of my diet for a long period, especially when I was in training to do the mountain guiding, became smoothies, soups, a lot of stews, a lot of juices. And then I realized, after I learned about my immune system, I had all these food allergies, as you mentioned. I was diagnosed with fresh fruit syndrome at 23, 24, severe food allergies to apples, peaches, pears, plums, carrots, celery, all different mixed nuts. And so when I started to study nutrition, I realized pretty quick when I read that over 70% of your immune system is in your digestive system. It really, it clicked for me. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, sure. I'm sick a lot, back then, even now I still get colds, but it's not like it was. Then it was like, okay, so if my immune system is mainly in my digestive system, then that means then what I'm putting into my body has a direct impact whether I feel good or don't feel good, or whether my body can fight off whatever is in there. And a large part of my movement to liquids was because they were the easiest on my body for digestion, which makes sense. I mean, your body has to pull all the nutrients out of your food. So as soon as you eat whatever you eat, it's got to pummel and squeeze it out to feed the cells the nutritional power. So if you're hopped up on processed food and heavy meat-based diet, that takes a lot of energy to break down those types of nutrients in meat. Plus the processed side, there's nothing to pull out of it. So the body's starving for nutrients, and the immune system is left vulnerable through that digestion of the heavy nutrients in meat and dairy. So as I started to add more liquids into my diet, I realized pretty quick that my immune system was changing. It was starting to be turned on a lot more than off. And then I started to test. After a little bit of time, I was testing the allergies, because I know they're autoimmune dysfunction, and how I was repairing my gut shifted everything. So I say that because I highly recommend for a lot of the listeners and a lot of people that I get a chance to share this with is start off with liquids. Start off by making your digestion just a little bit smoother and cleaner, and it starts to really change your experience around that relationship to yourself and your food. So I recommend starting the morning, a hemp smoothie. I have 2 young kids. My daughter, Juliet, is 4. Jacob is almost 2. And every day we start with hemp milk. And you can make a liter of hemp milk, about that big, cost $1 to make. All you do is you throw in a 1/4 cup of hemp seeds, 4 cups of water, turn it on. Froth up just like milk, and it's complete protein. The ideal ratio of the omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids, great
nutritional
power. And then that becomes the base of my smoothies, a lot of my soups, for the kids' cereals. The liquids is a great way to start to play around with your nutrient intake in a way that's easiest to digest.
So like what you mean, like drinking more water? I know that coffee you want to limit, definitely pop you want to limit. One that I didn't see, my friend is a dietitian, and I was drinking a lot of juice. So juice is not like one of those healthy things that you think is healthy.
Unless you make it yourself.
Unless you make it. Okay. So what would you like, so are you saying just like make a healthy smoothie? Like maybe what are, a couple of easy ones? So we've got the hemp.
So now you want this to be ingredients that are easy to find, easy to use. Like I use a lot of chlorella, a lot of spirulina, great protein source, really, really metabolize in a very powerful way, ignite the cells, but doesn't taste great. And it's not always the easiest to find and use. So I don't tend to share them too much, but throwing in a handful of kale, a handful of spinach into your smoothie is great. Get that extra greens, get extra iron, some calcium. I throw in a lot of Brazil nuts sometimes in there as well, just to really, really get some nourishment into the body. I don't know if you know E3 Live. The E3 Live products is another great one to add in there. They have one that's, I don't know if they have the brain on anymore, but that's all blue-green algae, extremely powerful cell boosters.
So the base would just kind of be like an almond milk and then like a couple of mixed fruits, like banana or mixed fruits or something, and then add all that stuff in?
Yeah, so it's usually, my base is usually hemp. Almonds is great too. And then, throw in, I love putting in banana in my smoothies. I'll throw in some fruit for sure. I like to put in a little bit of dash of cinnamon in there as well. Maybe even some dates as a sweetener if you want to add a little extra pop of sweetness.
Right. So again, what you're saying is like just do what you're normally doing. Like make a smoothie however your mind can imagine making a smoothie, and then add in what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, add in some, the protein sources like you mentioned. So, hemp is my number 1 source of protein by far. But there's so many sources of protein out there. Even kale is abundant in protein. Tons of other seeds, obviously all the different types of nuts. It's really critical to not make it too confusing on yourself. It's you think about, again, this idea of separation between plant-based world and the processed food world. And in the plant-based world, there's only 6 foods: the nuts, the seeds, the grains, legumes, fruits, and vegetables. So which ones of these, which are all living foods, can you add into a smoothie? And you think about all your nuts and seeds and fruits and vegetables, you start to mix and match and play around, and all of a sudden you're creating some beautiful, beautiful, powerful smoothies. So, another example is to make a smoothie with, hemp milk. Even if you want, throw in a can of coconut milk in there, throw in some pineapple, throw in, you can make all these different types of variations of these smoothies to make them fun.
Okay, that's a great suggestion. So what about like
and the power food is full of them.
Yeah. You got like, is it 100 in there? Is that what it is?
Yeah, 100 plus recipes in there. So if the whole idea is after you're finished adding, this idea of the 7-day challenge, and you're adding, you stabilize your blood sugar. The next step after that is you learn to get creative with these foods. And that's when it becomes a lifestyle. When you're making your own breads and you're making your own bars and you're not relying on all that heavily processed foods that we're so addicted to, you just get so excited about how you feel that you start making all that yourself.
And that's really the end goal. Like that's where, for the most part, we need to, well, not need to be, but it changes everything. So, right now, most hardwiring is quick and easy and get it done. Step one is think about the 6 types of, what did you say? Like the active
plant-based food.
Yeah, 6 plant-based foods. So even if you're eating like beefaroni, like add that in with your lunch. If you're making a sandwich, add some of those plant-based things. You've got a side of almonds, you've got whatever the case is, you're just adding those to your grocery list now.
Yeah.
Then once that starts to change, and then the food starts to take an effect on you, your brain starts to change, your body starts to change, your digestion starts to change, everything starts to change. And then with that,
it's not in years.
Huh?
It's not in years. It's not in years or months. It happens within days. If you're playing the mindful role with it, it happens within days.
Right. Yeah, and really, really connecting. Like, okay, like food is powerful. You're always going to be eating. Let's really create a relationship here, a real grateful relationship. Understand what the heck's going on, and then the next step, once you're adding all these things, is because if you look online too, it's super easy to find really healthy recipes. And for me, the shift was realizing, just making your own sauce for me was a huge thing. Like make your own pasta sauce. Anytime you can make your own, a slow cooker is money, man. Just take some vegetables, throw them in a slow cooker, and then, get your book and add in some of the stuff that you're going to get those, extra nutrients.
I got a question for you. At the heart of what we're talking about, at the heart of it all, what does it all represent? So if you were to take the 7-day challenge, if your listeners do it 7 days, you're going to add hemp seeds into everything. And that's just, for me, that's the easiest. So you don't have to confuse yourself with the 6 plant-based foods and trying to add all of them. Just do hemp. I mean, that's the easiest. And it's, for me, the most powerful, nutritional rich food that you can possibly eat.
Right.
So the act of adding that into your food, what does that represent?
Your mindfulness?
Yeah, at the heart of it, what is that an act of?
I don't know.
What if I say, I'll give you the letter L.
Love.
At the heart of it, it's an act of love for yourself. Now, when I stand in front of an audience, I have to gauge the audience if I can go this way or not. Usually I'll say, well, it's an act of nourishment, it's an act of self-care, but at the heart of it, it's an act of love for yourself. So I've noticed that over the years, as I understood that I'm not eliminating, I'm adding in. What am I adding in? Well, at the heart of it, I'm adding in acts of love. I'm adding in sources of light. The more I'm adding in these acts of love representing sources of light, there's very little room for darkness to stick around anymore the more you do it. So I think there's a real important link to this process that takes a little bit of time for some to understand that what you're doing is learning how to extend acts of love. So for me, the biggest act of love I can do for myself is to extend the act of love. So on a food basis, let's think about it for a minute. I can go to the store and I can buy whatever juice from the store, drink it full of sugar. It's not going to do anything for me, just spike and crash. Or I can go and buy a bunch of celery, a bunch of carrots, a bunch of kale, a bunch of lemons. I can go home, I can then clean them up, I can then chop them all, I can then put them all in my juicer. I can then clean up the juicer. So that's what I mean by this idea of an extension of an act of love. All of a sudden I go from buying a store-bought juice to just drinking it and feeling like crap to now the entire process of making a juice from start to finish is a very, very powerful act of love. So all I'm doing in my life is setting myself up in ways that I can extend my ability to come from a place of love for myself that then nourishes me to have an energy that allows me to manifest more of what my intentions are.
Sweet mother of God, man. That is just so beautiful. That is so beautiful. I got to find the little effect on here for the applause, man. Like, holy shit. Damn, man. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's good. And it's easy once you get going.
And, for me, it's so easy to draw that comparison. But for somebody that would be like, okay, holy crap, this guy's talking about food and love. It's all an act of self-love and self-care. You know, you want to be healthy. So if you were vibrant with energy, that food, the plant-based food that you're eating is becoming you, and it's changing everything about you. You know, there's nobody outside you that can make you feel good about yourself. And the weird thing, man, like I'll do sports psychology and mental training coaches. I've worked with some pro athletes, some aspiring athletes, everything in between. When I go through my series of questions, I know that I'm eventually getting to the question of self-love, self-worth. And it's amazing how many athletes that come in second are sabotaged because they don't feel worthy of being number one, which is so crazy. Greg Braden says we have three universal fears: not being loved, not being accepted, not being worthy, I believe. And we all struggle with those, and it's not like you're alone. Like I struggle. Mine is like self-worth. It's like, who the hell am I to write a book? Who am I to start a podcast? And so I just dummy all of this information, and like I got to read Adam's book, and I got to read this, and like, oh, and then I've got to read this. Oh, I've got to meditate more. I've got to do this, and then when I've done all these things, then I'll be worthy. But there's never a time when I've read enough books, or I've done a move on my snowboard, or I've done something where I feel worth. I have to create that in me now. And so what you're suggesting is switching the whole mother effing paradigm, and choosing to love yourself by what you put in your body, to respect and know that you are the creator, that you can freaking do anything that you want in your life, and you are choosing this. When you choose the pizza, you know, start by choosing Delissio pizza. You eat 5 Delicios a week, put some friggin' hemp seeds on there, because you make it so darn simple. It's such a beautiful hack that you've done there. Like it's so powerful. I definitely encourage everybody to do that, because it's friggin' brilliant. It's brilliant. It's like when I had, you know, from a meditation, people won't meditate. So my one, and I don't think it's equally brilliant, but I think it's good. In the book, I just say, sit your ass down and meditate for 1 minute on the first day. And then the second, 2 minutes, and the third, 3 minutes, and you go to 10 days. And people can kind of handle that. They can stomach a minute. And it's like, well, my thoughts, and I keep thinking, that's why you learn to meditate, to quiet the thoughts. Everybody's the exact same. That's the whole practice, you know? This is why you do it. Of course. Yes. So just a beautiful philosophy. And I think that as you set the example in your community, let's say maybe you're overweight, you don't have, I don't know what the case is. Health, man, holy shit. You can change everything. Like there's so many studies out there showing that changing your diet can cure you of like almost anything, like to really understanding it. So really just kind of switch your thinking around it, you know, take that challenge and then start to move forward from there.
You know, at the heart of, again, I mentioned this earlier, at the heart of what I'm talking about is, it really is pure manifestation. It's using energy to create exactly what you want in your life. And there really is, from my experience, a process on how to do it. And the stabilizing the blood sugar is a critical piece to then using the other pieces that go with the ability to do that. And this idea of the acts of love, as you connect to it at that level, it gets easier to start adding in as opposed to eliminating, because you start to really feel that lightness. You feel the energy from that experience. And it does motivate you to do more and keep doing it. And as long as there's structure around it and you have the tools that you need, then it does get easier. As soon as the structure falls away and you're back in the chaotic mode, it's very difficult to keep it going, because the darkness is still dominating. But once you get to that, once you get to that space where, 51% of your thoughts are based on positive, it starts to bubble into 60%, 80%. And then all of a sudden, you're in a mind state where darkness has no room at all. So when you sit there and you pick up a cookie, or you pick up a piece of chocolate cake, now here's the cool thing. You don't have to give that up. All your role is to be mindful in that moment and say to yourself, okay, I'm holding this cookie. Instead of being reactive, which is how most of us are, we have our thoughts, which lead to our feelings, leads to our, this model, leads to our actions, leads to our habits and every result we have. So we tend to skip right from thought to action. We don't engage the feeling. So if you pick up a cookie or whatever it is that your vice is, and you say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to react just by shoveling it in. I'm going to stop and be mindful for a split second and just ask myself, do I really want this? That's it. Now here's the cool thing. You can still choose to eat that. But because you stopped for that split second, you have changed the program. You've automatically started to shift the entire program because you made the conscious moment, present moment, stop, ask yourself, and say to yourself, okay, do I want this cookie, or would I prefer what the opposite? Maybe it's a carrot stick. Maybe it's a nutritious smoothie. But that's your only role. You can still choose to eat what doesn't serve you, but by stopping, the more you practice this, the more it's going to lead you to wanting to choose what will serve you. It might not happen right away. It might not happen all the time. But the more you practice, the more you're going to find yourself choosing the act of love as opposed to the other one.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, and it's so true. It is. So when I'm talking, the way that I understand that is that we have a neural net in our mind, right? So we have like a feeling, like it could be not good enough. It could be stress. It could be anxiety. So we know we have food, and we'll go out there and we'll grab the food because it fires all this circuitry in our mind. We feel good for a second, and then we feel terrible after. But it kind of appeases that feeling really quickly. That's why so many people have the food vice. So in what you're saying, and just being mindful of it, you're already stopping that neural circuitry that goes right down to reaction, and you're stopping. And you're giving yourself new opportunities to create new reactions, new feelings, new circumstances, and new results.
Without changing. You're not changing anything. You're just adding in that mindful second at that moment. That's it.
Yeah, and there's plenty of really healthy snacks that you can eat and make that are delicious, but you'll be like, okay, like I really love cookies. How could I make a healthier cookie? That thought might now fire out, and you'd be like, healthy cookies, okay. And then you do this, and now you've got healthy cookies, and that's like one tiny step. Don't go from, beginner to, getting crazy, right? Start really small, and how it starts is the consciousness. It's your choice to love yourself, to love your body, to understand that what you put into your body really, really matters. And then just as a side note, I wanted to talk about this, before, as you're saying some things, like just the gratitude of your food. I believe it's Masamoto experiments in Japan where they do it when you say love to water, and it crystallizes really beautiful. And even on the jar you put, let me see that. I just got to click your screen here. Yeah, exactly, right? Beautiful. So the water freezes in a beautiful pattern. You put hate in it, and it freezes in a different way. And I've heard of stories before of people who have gardens, how they talk to their plants. I definitely 100% believe that plants have intelligence. And I think that through even our intention of just saying like, thank you for the food. Like I ask you to nourish my body, and just do whatever process. It may feel weird at first, but get into it. How about I take away food for 10 days and see how grateful you are for food? Stop thinking that this is just like you get to just consume everything like a monster. You know what I mean? Start to be like, holy crap, like let's just break this down. Thank you, Carrot. Like, this is, you're propelling me to go to my job, to meet this person. And the more you raise your energy and raise your vibration, and that's all we are, is vibrational beings. And you can do that tremendously with food. You can cure disease with food. This is proven. This isn't. And most disease comes from food. And it, like you said, it is all by design. Like for me, the one that pisses me off is education. Like it just pisses me off. How are they not teaching? In school, I always felt like I wasn't very intelligent. I felt like I was intelligent, but I was like, I don't want to remember this shit. Like intelligence isn't remembering crap that I don't want to know. Like that to me doesn't equate intelligence. Now there's a lot of good things in school, for sure. But why are they not teaching meditation? Why isn't NLP, a process? Why isn't, mindfulness in there? And I know it's starting to come, but they're not teaching you to think. They're teaching you to take orders. They're basically trying to put you through this process. And this isn't to say there isn't amazing teachers out there My girlfriend's a beautiful, wonderful, amazing teacher. They do exist. It's just that you've got this paradigm of baloney. So, when I go through the grocery store, why is it so difficult to find healthy foods? And now they're messing with seeds and all sorts of other crazy nonsense. So, then it's like, holy crap. We've got this whole system, trying to just think about if you do like an all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet. How do you feel after?
Oh, I used to do those all the time.
I know. I miss them though. Like, I may want to do like one every, and you can still do them. You can still do them. Yeah. You just don't do them every day. And if you go, it's crazy too, the patterns. You go in the States, you go to different places in the world, you see people big, small, and it's through cultural beliefs. It's through what they go through, what they eat. So just being mindful of this process, like going through the States, everything was all you can eat. And as I go to this KFC, it's like, and I have $8 sandwich, or like all I can eat for $10. So of course I'm going to go for the all I can eat. And of course I want to get my money's worth. So I'm just eating chicken and just and then I'm driving, and I get in my car and I'm going from Toronto back out west, but I'm going through the States, and I just can't move. But I'm choosing to do this to myself. So what you're suggesting and what
most of us aren't consciously doing. We're not consciously choosing though. It's such a reactive process.
Yes. And that's where your massive tip was, to just be conscious and sitting and just be like, okay, every time you sit down to eat something, just be conscious. What am I eating? What's my intention?
And if you want a tool to do it, what I recommend is just put an elastic around your wrist. And before you eat anything, you don't have to snap it hard. You can, but before you put anything in your mouth, your only role is to snap it, just to put yourself in that mindful state of, okay, this is what I'm about to do. Is this what I really want to do? And that's it. So the tool is the elastic, or, sometimes I have this. So that's a mirror. So sometimes I'll actually carry this with me. And when I'm going somewhere, and if I, depending on what feeling or what I'm about to eat, I know this might sound a bit strange to some people, but I'll look at myself in the mirror and I'll just connect with myself, and I'll ask myself, and inside it says smile, so I'll say, okay, do I really want to eat this, whatever is in my hand? And then I'll make that conscious choice at that moment. And I find this mirror extremely powerful, because it also allows me, when I choose not to have what isn't serving me and I choose to have what is serving me, it allows me to celebrate with myself right away. Beautiful. Which is a critical, huge vibrational boost when you do a little fist bump to celebrate.
Yeah.
So,
and it's
been really critical tools.
Yeah. And that's a powerful tool. What that is, I'll just double down on that teaching point. That is an NLP trigger. You're now creating a trigger to be mindful. So when I'm teaching sports psychology, I want to trigger people into being in the zone. What my friend with Lovevolution does, he sets the triggers for vibrational love harmony, which 528 hertz music is the heart resonance, where there are sounds that put you into the heart vibration. Tibetan singing bowls. This isn't like And so
you know what those things?
Yeah, and so I've heard this, and I'm sure it's true. They detune the music on the radio to a frequency that's not harmonic. So kind of like the same, like scratching on the chalkboard. You're like, oh my God, like that's terrible. So with a 528 resonance, your mind and your body's like, oh yes, like and it puts you into harmonized state, a harmonized frequency. And food can do the same thing. So we're using these triggers to reset our thinking. You're not going to figure out all the whole entire gamma of food right now, or paleo and not paleo. And I think that there's a really big value in saying, like, don't go super crazy with it. I've seen people that go, raw vegan, which is fine. All of it is fine. But you can go raw vegan, vegetarian, and they just are down this path, but it's not a sustainable path. You can see it that they're not having a sustainable path. So it's trying to find that sustainability for them. You could be a raw vegan and it could be sustainable for you if that's the case. But
they're just labels, like I get asked all the time, well, Adam, are you a vegan? Are you raw vegan? Are you vegetarian? Are you, and if people want a label for me, I tell them, well, call me a digestitarian. That's fine. Because I want to eat food that's as easiest to digest on my system. But the reality is labels aside, like I mentioned already, like everybody has a different diet that's optimal for them. And it's always about connecting to how you're feeling. If you can continually connect to how you feel, it's going to guide you to the optimal diet for you, which is going to be completely different from anybody else that you know.
That's amazing. Okay, well, I would say just as do you have any any additional tools that someone can help? Because those have all been, and I want to recap what you've said, before you eat, snap. So you're just being conscious of what you're putting in your mouth and eating. What was the other one? More drinks.
The little shaker is a great idea.
The shaker, yes. Shaker's beautiful.
Jar is a tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to go as far as doing the mirror thing, I mean, that's for some people that's a bit extreme, but I love it.
Yeah, that's a good one. What would you say? And then I was gonna ask, what are just if somebody wants to start and they want to go to the grocery store and start, they're just in. You got them convinced and they're in. What are 10 ingredients? Just go boom, get these and just sort it out.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll give you my top 5.
Okay.
My top 5 for sure. Hemp seeds is the number 1. I do tons of goji berries as kind of like my during the day little pick me ups. The idea of this living food world. If you Google Kirlian photography with a K, Kirlian photography, high voltage photography, you're going to see what a goji berry looks like under this type of photography. It's got this electrical charges shooting all around it. You don't see it.
That's so awesome. I got a big, huge thing of goji berries. They were on sale in France. I usually don't get them because they're so damn expensive. But I was like, you know what? But one person told me once that when I was like, oh, they're so expensive. Yeah, but she actually literally said do you love beer more than yourself? And this is just random circumstance and it was in Squamish because when you live in Whistler, the grocery store sucks. Well, it's okay. So you got to go to Squamish for regular price stuff. And that was kind of what it was. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I don't know, beer right now.
Yeah. I at first, especially with goji berries, $20 a pound or whatever it is. At first it's well, that's a really steep price to pay. But when you really are connected to the nourishment, the love for yourself, I go in there and I'm like, yeah, $20, you bet. I'm gonna get this bag and then I'm gonna nourish each one of them. Every time I put that and eat one, it's just gonna, it's gonna nourish me.
Yeah,
the other one in there too is coconut. I do a ton of coconut oil, coconut manna. This is a really, really great medium chain triglyceride, converts into energy. It's super efficient. So I take a lot of that manna, which is the meat and all of it just kind of slow pressed together. And I'll take it into the mountains with me. So it's like my main fuel source when I go ski touring or ice climbing or rock climbing. Just amazing stuff. That's 3.
That's 3. I got 2 more.
Those are the top 3.
Top 3. Okay.
I'm also, I'm a big fan of chia seeds. As long as we pre-soak them, we tend to overconsume chia right now, knowing it's a extremely powerful food, great omega-3 source. But what happens with chia is it expands 9-to-1. So if you consume too much of it, which a lot of people are, then it's expanding inside your stomach and it's going to bloat you and leave you feeling a little bit uncomfortable. So what I tend to do with my chia is I'll put it inside I make a vitamin water. It costs $1 to make. So I'll have a liter of water. I'll throw in a little bit of Himalayan crystal salt in there, a little bit of lemon juice, and a couple tablespoons of chia seeds in there, and let it soak. And the chia expands inside and becomes gelatinous all around it. So what that does is, as I drink that, it acts like an anti-inflammatory because it's already been released. The oils are released. Everything is already almost in a pre-digested form. And as soon as I consume it, it's acting like an anti-inflammatory on the system. So that's definitely one that I've been doing a lot of. And then, I tend to do a lot of almonds. I tend to do a lot of walnuts, just because the way that I prepare my food, I like to make it easy to have my own breads, easy to have my own crackers, easy to have my own cookies. And nuts, as long as they're clean, are just an amazing way to get super creative with having alternatives to our traditional style of the way that we tend to consume those types of foods. So almonds, walnuts, Brazil nuts, pecans, they're all a big part of my diet.
Awesome, man. I appreciate that. Well, that was a landslide of epic information. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all that wisdom. I learned a ton. I'm super stoked to rethink my eating again and just to add all this stuff. And it's challenging for me on travel, but when I go, I try to add. First thing I do is I want to go get hemp seeds and chia seeds and all that kind of stuff and add them in. So I really appreciate you coming on, sharing all of that amazing wisdom. I know that your website's packed with info. I follow you. I have you on my. You're one of my favorite people actually to get emails from because I know it's always useful. It's not like some sort of crap. So where can people find more about you and stay connected and learn some of your amazing recipes, because you have a lot of amazing content on your website and your email feed as well.
Yeah, appreciate all the kind words, and you can definitely become part of the community at poweroffood.com. All one word, poweroffood.com. That's kind of like the main hub for all that I'm up to and all the information for sure.
Yeah, on the Twitter, you got Twitter you want to shout out?
Yeah, Twitter at Power of Food. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, same idea, Power of Food as well on Facebook. But yeah, mainly I keep my community through my own emailing network, and Instagram too. If you want to find me there, Adam Hart on Instagram.
Perfect. Yeah. Definitely, everybody out there, you want to connect with Adam. You want to change your diet. It is changing your mind around it. So if you're ready to take that plunge, he has got all the information. I highly suggest you do the challenge. I can attest to experiencing his magic of food and have incorporated a lot of what he teaches. So, I hope that you can learn a little bit of what we did today. And thank you so much for watching. And until next time, Adam, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. We'll have to have you back on.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Matt.
Okay. Peace, man.
Take care.
Bye,
man.
everyone.